Chile here with Sirius Telus Moon Jupiter, our 29 degrees ascendant in mid-heaven, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is 15 degrees retrograde in Cancer, Moon 19 degrees Aries. Moon is applying to conjoin Chiron and Aries today, and this is going to be, I think, the last episode in my Detroux trilogy. Honoring Mars 22 degrees here in Aquarius, ruled by Saturn that conjoins Neptune, that's ruled by 22 Mars. So definitely, as Mars is releasing the on-the-minute conjunction with Neptune, we have the onset of the on-the-minute conjunction ruled by 22 Mars. And we had the raising of the tariffs and the extortion called logic. Okay, so this trilogy is very Saturn Neptune like, and in this episode I would like to address I threw a joke out there where there was a 90-page psychiatrist report, and by the way, these people are also doctors, okay, that affects the medical now, and I threw out saying, well, Detroux could be vanilla for all they're concerned. What they're concerned about is is the names that he's going to say when he's so called out. Now, a couple of things to consider. Within prison system, there definitely can be some sort of secret doors to an Epstein Island and Air Force Ones and I mean, it's not structurally, it's not impossible. The question is more because these people operate by being free in the sense of not bound by law. So one would come to question what are they bound by? Because they're definitely bound by something. They're bound by the tension of sin and morality to create extortion. They're bound by thresholds of sin and morality because they have to be on the edge, almost normalizing pedophilia, but not. Otherwise, there's no extortion cult. The erotic centers that it falls on with Neptune rules eroticism, is the unattainable, and Neptune rules just that, is the unattainable. And in that sense, the feeling that they almost get away with that, but they don't, in various mysterious ways. Just like the almost getting caught and the addiction. Now, this third episode is going to address a topic where one of the ways in which people like Detroux could be of interest to interview is the setting where I talked about the setting of the exotic, but definitely here is what it's not. And what it's not is the erotization of the evildoers. Okay, there's a whole branch of basically eroticism of molesters, serial killers, perpetrators, and so on and so forth. And by the way, in that genre, Detroux would be the eroticized, the fetishized, and the basically the object. So in that setting, he would be the siren that has to um, allure with the promise of love that is unattainable. Now, because it was unattainable to him, it could be very convincing. It would not be lying playing that role. And this is another fallacy where one could fall into, which is the erotization of the killer, and the erotization of, oh, those people could be healed by love, not addressing the oil, the gas, the real estate, the funding, the programming, the everything behind that. And so what becomes the unattainable is the settings that used to work. Or we can make of it something exotic, or um, the approaching of, and here is the thing, coming out of misplaced arousals and trauma bonds to relaxed arousal and secure attachment raises the overall frequency. That's Uranus in Taurus. By the way, it was also Uranus in Libra. The people authentically are not into the cult like eroticism that was based on trauma. This is what created the conditions for the exposure, as well as the lack of interest in those that try to still talk about Detroux with the 666 hand gestures. And by the way, they tried to make me do that. When I did water expands upon cooling and I didn't know what is that peace sign, I thought it was a peace sign. And then through the Verstigens, like, but I saw that something was trying to make me do a certain thing. And I'm like, okay, I can channel, but channel is not consent. Just like communication is not consent. And so we need to take into account the fact that, first of all, the branch of this type of eroticism, of eroticizing the sex offender and the exotic in the supposedly anomaly sexuality, is like, I don't even know if if there are people that are not in the echelons, whether it be media interviews or any vocation. And at the same time, there are a significant amount of people that are clearly not in the genre of yet another 666 moderated erotization of molestation type of cover or broadcast. Um, and it's so much so that when those things done in big media, how should I say that? We're not in the day and age where, okay, because the people that are in it, their hand gestures are just, and they're seeking to basically fool others. But this is the time where they try to fool all the people all the time. And another thing is that we shouldn't assume we are not talking about a free man. Not free as in free to be perpetrator and so on and so forth. But in the very literal sense, not seriously as imprisoned as we might think he is. Because he is a perpetrator. Thought experiment. What if he had no sadistic inclinations or molestation inclinations as his sexual kink? Could he still enjoy that freedom? Now, here is the thing. People in those positions, they got many people that enable. Okay, they got the love letters from the people who eroticize. Okay, so this is together with the fact that the clients are the ones that own the media. The conglomerate thing about the Epstein conglomerate, it owned the media. Now I saw BlackRock coming to purchase private equitize big data. The big issue around which child predator gets more media time is more about the competition between the rare earth gas and oil companies on looting certain areas. And So the stranglehold on the framework of production of Peter Ring's list by structure is pretty much exposed. Is the Epstein list unprecedented? Yes. Would the Detroux deck be unprecedented? With an overlap, yes. um, do they have the frame of control over the exposure and how it's framed? Not anymore. And then is the question of what would we aim at? Mars 22 here is ruled by structure and ruling the structure. Pluto is making big steps to Detroux's Chiron Lilith. There would very likely be people who would want to confront, but not just him, but the very network he exposes, because this interview, if there would be such interview, would be around the people that were affiliated with names and ranks in the secret society and the rites of passages who they had to kill. And this tells me more of boys and boys here. Definitely Venus was with Rahu in the eclipse, and this thing kind of popped up at the aftermath of the eclipse, a little bit before, but definitely, and this is where, when Saturn was here, definitely it popped up. It's now, here is the thing, there's a very big structure. Saturn, Neptune, 0° Aries, Mars 22 Aquarius. Mars and Saturn in reception for the on the minute 0° conjunction. All of that happens right in the aftermath of an eclipse, with Venus Rahu conjoining and Sol Moon at 28 degrees Aquarius, squaring Uranus, while Saturn Neptune already within the degree orb. Venus and Rahu conjoined on 9 degrees Pisces, which is degree of completion. Jupiter in the sign of the moon, again completion. Now here's the thing. Venus Rahu, somebody is fated to speak. Venus is values and speech. Now, to be very honest, it's a big network dissolution. Mama לא כרגע. Thanks. We'll send Vogue to bring them nutmeg. um, with Saturn ruling Pluto, leaky names lists is an act of control. Mars 22 denotes here at structures, the names of the assassins in the structures. And in that case, murders. Okay, when it came to Mark Dutroux's case, he confessed to holding the women hostages, if I'm not mistaken, not to the murder. Now, definitely structurally he would have needed to murder. That being said, the children would be, some of them, to be gifted, not really gifted because it's extortion called, to basically being tortured and murdered. And the names of who murdered might be an act of control to leak. But this is exactly why it doesn't fall on the eroticizing centers of power. That's why Detroux didn't manage to get the list out, or the interview with the details about the network out, because he was, whether by will or not, surrounded by the cult, the 666s. And there's something about the structure of this transit that does not support those erotization centers that created the Detroux dossiers, both within Marc Dutroux himself. Detroux, Detroux, okay? There were many, even prior to the Epstein list, there were many attempts to have a stormy scandal, to make it, to collapse the frequency into a stormy scandal. That was not the way it was going to go. And I can say the same for the Trolodex. It meets people in the point where they actually want to see change. Now, as long as it works on those erotization centers, they could play that like a movie. But people want concrete change in their lives. And that's why we don't see an actual interview that is not, and this is also why the actual interviews are not really crossing the threshold to something that has actual viewers. Okay. In this day and age, people would be way more interested in the survivors confronting not just the Detroux, not just the network, but their family members in the network. It, that being arranged safely would get viewers, yes. And that being juxtaposed to transferring wealth to the survivors. Mars is 2 meters from Denebalgiri. Is not another move of power with this one. And I think that was the onset of the Detroux seers from the get-go. Pluto was on the galactic center when when Epstein was first litigated. Neptune was ingressing to Aquarius prior to the Detroux seers. And it would be soon followed by Uranus, if not conjoining Uranus upon the ingress. I would need to check that, but um, and we have to take into account that each of these extortion cult centers represent a different pole on the map for the New World Order vision. So everything aligns for these things to be exposed. But nothing aligns for these things to be further power maneuvered more than they already are. It's just one of those moments, just the way that it was with the Me Too, that everybody thought they're going to maneuver that, but no, people actually believe the people that spoke up. And after the Epstein list and what it actually pertains to, then, and by the way, the big emphasis on fashion was this Venus Rahu, on fashion and fashion industry. And academia, which was Jupiter, megalithic exposure. That really shows us that this is in everything. And to that everything, people seek alternative. It also expresses itself in an almost immediate financial crisis. Okay, the tariffs were already raised by 10%, which is import to the United States, which is export to the other countries. And we know that their local produce is pretty much dead camps. So it is what it is. It didn't start with Trump. So people already feel that financially. It's not going to raise the dollar. With the options for the United States is to do China, to lower the dollar so that people will buy US produced, but but they don't need to anymore. And when it comes to weapon trade, and that's another thing that came up, people expect to be compensated when they are targeted or harmed, not pay money for protection. Okay, the protection boom, bubble pop that we know that has been happening, and there has been a big protection bubble pop on real estate, on businesses, and on individuals. That's a megalithic boom. This causes people also to not be compliant with recruitment, mandatory recruitment. We talk about military. In Italy, we saw anti-NATO demonstrations, like when people, like they made themselves, the people made themselves really clear that they are not going to just be, okay, we want human rights, we want better economy, we want more opportunities, and then when they say, okay, there's war now, they're not going to, then you know, that move doesn't work. And also there is a big authentic wish, desire that is aligned with the heart and mind to have house that is actually housing, a business that's actually working, that's not some looting of something, sovereignty that's actually, and it comes as an authentic desire. It's in the frequency of aligned with the heart, authentic desire. And that's a threshold that where people are not ignorant of, let's say, the evil things, and because they are informed, they understand what is actual success, fulfillment, and what is not. What is based on addiction to patterns, and what is actually taking action in the direction of one's authentic wants and needs that are underlying every programming. Now, raw Venus people want authentic connection. They're not going to go for power scams. Aries people want authenticity. Power is not fulfilling as sovereignty and connection. Okay? This is why people have power addictions, because it negates sovereignty, freedom, which is aligned with the heart. I know it's difficult, but it's also the truth. We can rely on approximation as whatever. Now, again, I'm not saying that those mythical approximations in the reality of lack and dissociation don't feel like miraculous power, omnipotence, or even certain sort of groundedness that is authentic to the disposition. Jupiter exalted in Cancer, people want authentic connections, authentic relation. Okay, like I said, relaxed arousal, secure attachment. It's not it's not the erotic and relational centers that trauma bonds and Peter rings work on. Okay, when I was in university, I was addicted to coffee. Why? Because I did not have money to buy food. And by the time I had, the food around was no longer growing in organic soil and the minerals weren't absorbed right. Okay, so it's the difference between that and actually having nourishing food, which also means secure attachment and relaxed arousal, by the way. It's the same limbic system involvement, libidinal centers. Um, Now, when they try to make everything libidinal, it's very funny. When I was a young girl, I saw people walking with a bracelet around the feet. And I said, "Oh, that's so cute." And my mom said, "No, that's for lesbians." And I'm like, "What's lesbians?" Then I don't know, work at a job, I learned aromatherapy and butters or something like that. This eclipse, I learned that there are people that are sex trafficked that are doing those things. And I'm like, okay. But this also goes like I took a break from fucking academia, so it's like everything becomes a sign for yeah, because they try to get those things to everywhere, and then the signs are everything is a sign because they try to make everything that, which creates the juxtaposed reaction. For example, well, if I find, I don't know, a bracelet on my ankle nice, then I don't care. Like, I just find it nice. And this is where we have the dissolving of the symbolism. Okay, it goes back to the same era of the Me Too. It's not about what she was wearing or not wearing. It's about whether he orgasms with relaxed arousal or with misplaced arousal as a perpetrator, which makes him come on dopamine, which makes him eventually develop erectile dysfunction. Unfortunately, after way too long, he's been practicing that. כן, סורדה, צריך לשטוף אותה מהקפה הקודם. Now, in those settings, I've been seeing yeah, I've been seeing the reaching out of the consciousness of Mark Dutroux to the world. And I beg the question, what would he want to achieve with being in the media Um, would he even want an interview where he's not around the 666s? Given all that I just said. Now, to be very frank, with Mars 22 in here, lists of name can be lists of name to the guillotine. um, and there is a military secret society, drug, and electricity or science. Even astrology, by the way. I think Pfizer was astrologer. Any other Aquarian significations? And with Aries, it's founders of. So he probably has some names of the founder of the Dutrolodex. Folken, I have no idea who these names are. So for me, it was simply a success block when it comes to, I don't know, making a life while making a living. It was and given that the desire to have an alternative to the cult-like way of being is the blue ocean here. So the question is, what would Dutroux want from such an interview? Would he be willing to confront survivors and what they have to say? Would it be a point of actual release of things that he wanted to talk about, and having the survivors actually affirming that the big devils are not in listed in prison, listed in prison. um, later. And the fact that the stars here really do not support a successful um, big move. And the fact, you know what? Let's do a little bit of a natal chart reading. Um, with transits. Um, so natal chart reading with the transits, current transits, would give me, you know what, I'll just do it by heart because it's easier. Not this one. Nay. The truth. Thank you. Okay. So Pluto is at fractions of a millisecond from his Chiron and Lilith, which is going to take a couple of years. And this is on his fourth house, which ruler is in the second Definitely referring to the estate he owned, but also his upbringing house. This is going to dredge up some of the most, you know, he's over 50, so the big Chiron stuff he dealt with, but Pluto going through that point is going to deal with where, where he was, if he was secretly wed as a boy to a 30th degree rank, or if he's secretly married now to a boy. And they're gonna know because Jupiter is in the 11th. Now Uranus to Uranus, I'm an astrologer. For him, Uranus is in the 10th house, so reaching out to consciousness of astrologers would be career-oriented purposes. Setting the first, yes, granted, it is not like fatherhood. um, Here is midheaven, 26 degrees. Again, midheaven Pluto Regulus tells me that whatever was the Pluto there, it had its royal star. Regulus is royal star, so power with the royals. Mercury here in the first house, he personally had power as with the community of royals. Now, Ketu Rahu will be applying to, how should I say that? When Ketu ingresses to Leo, it would be Ketu on his Pluto. Now, there's another guy that was born about a week later. It is quite a similar chart with a different moon. And he also happened to have a name. Um, anyway, I know. um, 3 degrees away to Mars. Now, let's take a look at asteroids. I predicted that the Trolodex will. Now, here's the thing. I told you that how should I say that? Facebook has taken Facebook has taken a break from me, so I have no idea what's going on Facebook right now. Okay, it is, and you know what? This setting is kind of like a control group. Falcon, I don't know what Rudy published. Okay. um, but if you ask me as an astrologer, okay, so Pluto here, Regulus, ruled by Mercury, Mercury in the first house, ruled by Mars, Mars in the fifth house. So entertainment, media, Jupiter in the 11th, entertainment, media, goals and dreams, colleagues from entertainment, media, and royalty related stuff. By the way, his series, which is Mother Whose Children Were Taken from Her, is is on the little eclipse that we had in Aries. Uh, Secretary General's in Saraswati. Yeah. Uranus will go over Mark Dutroux's Ketu. His Venus is in the 12th house in home sign Libra. So Uranus doing the back and forth over Mark Dutroux's Ketu was the Israel-Palestine war. Sedna was COVID. And the aftermath. WHO. Extortion cult logic. You see, he arranged all that, and he's still and he's still in prison. He's still listed in prison. I could say extortion cult Matt, but I cannot count the puns or Ponzi schemes. So, as Ketu approaches his Pluto, we might be losing the secrecy around the community. Purging the secrecy around his colleagues. His colleagues. Anyway, and this would be Rahu Ketu square. Now, the eclipse was already somewhat opposing his Pluto. Venus Rahu in the 5th, Jupiter in the 9th. The entire Aquarius stellium we had was in the 4th house. Again, dredging up big issues. Uranus going through the 7th begs the questions. We probably are going to know who was he working with. I think during this time his wife divorced him because there was an issue that he couldn't interview her before, or she couldn't testify before divorcing. I don't know if she divorced or not, like, okay, but um so that's Uranus in Taurus in the 7th with Venus in the 12th.